And now.
All right.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our weekly webinar. I hope you are as thrilled as I am about these topics. Now, just to kind of remind you of something, almost every week, Mike and I will discuss a different demographic variable, different locations. We'll talk about stuff that's happening in the real live world. And so we're not just talking about the abstract, we're actually talking about sites. And this is what we're going to do today. Today, our topic is going to be on the fastest growing segment of the population, which are senior citizens. Yes, those people who are 65 years of age and older. And as I'll remind you in our little session that follows, that is how you define a senior citizen by demographic standards. It's under 65 and older 65. And frankly, I'm getting to the threshold. Basically, this means lay off, give me a break. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to try to do it where I don't look like a senior citizen and start drooling in the middle of the transfer process, which is something that happens. Let's not go there.
That was pretty good. Good job.
Okay. Now, let me explain to everybody why I want to talk about seniors. Because remember, we're talking about the perfect place to put a practice. It's what we're talking about. I want to talk about, for our clients, how to go after a particular population segment that is going to be very popular, profitable, and is largely, believe it or not, being ignored by many of your competitors. So if we can figure out how to do that, you are in so much better position. Now, Mike is going to talk a little bit about how to promote your practice to the senior market. And I think that's going to be kind of a useful thing for him to discuss. Mike does work closely with me, and he kind of considers me to be sort of his guinea pig lab rat. Anyway, on working with elderly. Now, one of the fastest...
A father figure, I would say.
A father figure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good save. Good save. Now, it's one of the fastest growing markets for doctors, regardless of the practice type. Now, you don't have to be a gerontologist, in other words, to realize that working with older adults is going to be a good idea. Let me explain to you real quickly why. Now, it's a great potential market for three big reasons. Number one, economic circumstances. The elderly, and I mean people who are 65 years of age and older, have the vast majority of disposable income within the United States. They have the credit, they've got a lot of stuff going for them, and some other factors that we'll talk about in a minute. There's also the idea of medical and behavioral factors that make them more desirable. And we could kind of describe this in terms of need. Now, older adults not only have resources to pay for it, the economics, but they also have behaviors and other factors, medical factors, that make them more desirable to target. There's also a few other things that you ought to know about the way that they live geographically and also their environment, meaning not, the environment like the weather or the climate, but rather the environment in which they live. They are often in a circumstance that make them more desirable for practices to have as patients. Now, I'll get a little more drilled down on this. Relative to all other age groups, seniors are increasing. Now, do you remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the diminishing birth rate? It basically means that kids who are under 18 are becoming a smaller and smaller general segment of the population. When you consider that the migrant population, all those people coming from other countries, tend to be younger, it should make you sit up and realize even with that increase of younger adults and adolescents, they're still not increasing as fast as the older adults. Now remember, I said 65 years of age and older. Here's the thing that made demographers this week kind of freak out. And they went, oh my gosh, what? That by 2035, and that's going to be well within all of our lifetimes, I hope, there will be 78 million seniors versus the 76.7 million 18 and under. So for the first time in American history, seniors are going to outnumber those who are 18 years of age and younger. Now, keep this in mind. They tend to vote. Older adults vote in their own best interest, and they got nothing to do but vote or get involved in things like this. And that's why when I go to political meetings and I'm consulting for one of the parties, you'll notice there's a lot of people who are 65 years of age and older, and they look at my hairline and they're not so surprised. The other thing I want you to recognize, and this estimate is a little squishy, but there are some very good estimates that they have 4 times greater net worth than those people who are under 40 years of age. So they buy the expensive houses, the cars, they have stuff in the bank, they've got stocks and bonds. So they're an economic powerhouse. They also have a couple of other things that are pretty important. They've got the resources, which I mentioned the money. They also have the time. Now, they don't have to squeeze in an appointment, but where they have to miss work. They've got the time to go into your office. And the other thing is, they got the need. As I mentioned, the voting likelihood when you're over 65 is so much greater than when you're under, say 30 or 40. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden seniors start figuring out and flexing their muscle. I think that's going to be a big deal. Now, who wants seniors as patients? Now, the obvious group are going to be those people who are working directly in the gerontology or in gerontological market. They're dealing with issues of longevity. Endocrinologists and physical therapists and things like that, certainly. But you also have to understand that there are a lot of general practices that are recognizing that they're a better group to maintain. So if we take periodontists, sure, periodontists serve a lot of people, and so do prosthodontists. But you realize that at age 40, the odometer in your mouth has just turned over. You need more stuff that needs to get maintained. There's also a thing which seniors, as we're recognizing them as a market, are now doing that they weren't doing before, and that is they're opting for cosmetic procedures. One reason that they're doing it is because in the olden days, when I was a kid, by the way, no kidding, the average mortality rate was under 70. Right now, it's about 85, mid-80s for men, and that's kind of amazing, and a lot of women are living into their 90s. That means that cosmetic procedures are mattering to people because they're going to stick around for a long time. The other thing I want to identify, and I do lectures to veterinarians as well, guys, the veterinary market is exploding, not because of comfort animals per se, but because there are a lot of seniors who recognize that they're part of their family. They're going to stick around for a while, and they're willing to spend far more money on those services for their pet partner. The companionship and the service makes a lot of sense for these people. Now, ultimately, we have to figure out where do we find seniors, and there's 2 approaches to it. The first is to seek high concentration of senior citizens. It's odd because it's a little easier. Seniors like to cluster around other seniors. They don't want to fight with people in their 20s or even younger. They kind of want to hang out with people who are a little calmer and have their interests, regardless of their socioeconomics, regardless of their race and ethnicity. They want to be around others. So they tend to cluster together, and we'll talk about those specific communities and how to identify them. The second way to do it is you take a whole bunch of people, and then you kind of shake it a little bit through a sieve, and then what falls out are the seniors. There are ways to attract them from a large general population for your benefit. Now, you don't have to be in one of those senior communities in order to do this. You just have to understand that seniors have different demographic variables and psychographic desires that are not like everybody else. That's what I got to tell you. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Now, where are the large concentrations? Traditionally, they've been like in Arizona, Florida, and I know you may not know this if you haven't been in Utah, but Utah has a very large percentage of people who are elderly, particularly in southern Utah, and places on the mid-Atlantic states like North Carolina has been designated as one of those places that has a lot of them. Tennessee and Kentucky are also rising in that. Now, you probably already know that Florida has a lot, and what you may not know is that Colorado is becoming a major center for senior citizens. The same thing is true of Texas. Now, not all parts of Texas are equally desirable for seniors, but if you consider the warm weather, the upscale neighborhoods, and the ability to visit family Dallas-Fort Worth Airport has got a ton of connections everywhere in the country. And when you look at a place like Texas, it's inexpensive in which to live. The same thing is true of Nevada, which is now becoming a much bigger place. Of course, you recognize that the major population center in Nevada is Las Vegas, but are you aware that Reno, up in the Northwest, is becoming a major player in the senior world? And so, by the way, is the Northeast of the state, Wendover. So, and maybe you've all heard of Mesquite. I know that Mike has. Those places are attracting seniors to cluster together as few other places. The same thing is true of Idaho. Now, some people go, well, it's cold in Idaho. Yes, it is, but it's very inexpensive in which to live. So you can build a house or move to one of those prefabricated homes in Idaho, like in Haley, and do great. The other thing is other states like Georgia, and believe it or not, Alabama and Mississippi are inexpensive but highly desirable places to go. So they have identified in these 5 states that the senior market is something that they do like and want to play in. Now, I could go through and name all the cities, but let me just kind of throw this to you. Guys, if you want to know where I think you should go specifically, let's do a telephone consultation. It's going to be the least expensive, most direct way to determine the options that you have without having to order a report on a specific site. So the telephone consultation is a great way to do that inexpensively. Now, if you want to find people who are going to be coming from the general population, a few things you have to keep in mind. First of all, signage. Senior citizens are not attracted to the same signage factors that the general population is. Social media is just not played in the same way. By the way, which is more desirable for them, Google ads or Facebook ads? Huh? I'll tell you sometime. Anyway, also when you design a direct mail piece for seniors, it isn't the same thing that you have for others. And what has worked for everybody else isn't working for seniors. And we've got great research. This is one of the areas that Mike, I think, is particularly good in. Now, the last point I want to bring up is senior messaging. What works for some age groups just won't work for seniors. It doesn't mean that they don't have things in common. It's just the things that you're going to say in your advertising. Let's say you're a dentist and you're trying to get people to come in. What's more important, cosmetics or function? It's that division that will make the understanding that people have of what you offer much more desirable. Dermatologists, is that something that seniors want? Dermatology is one of the great growing industries for seniors. Now, the same thing is going to be true of veterinary medicine that has messages specifically for seniors. We don't have time to get into it now. I'll simply say, be sensitive to that fact. Now, there are some discounts that we're offering. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you something that may not go out to everybody. But we're doing changes on our landing page almost on a daily basis, which means go to drdemographics.com, and we're doing new promotions. In fact, this morning, I just recorded 2 new ones. They're discounts, and one of them is the deepest discount we've given on this type of report ever. Check it out probably toward the end of the day or like on Wednesday this week, and we'll have that posted. Guys, what I'm trying to do is to make sure that you have a real inducement to check our website on a regular basis because the discounts we're offering are huge. Aren't they, Mike?
They are. They're fantastically massive.
All right. Mike's the one who generates those codes. So if you don't like double nickels, blame Mike. Okay. Now, Mike, you were going to talk a little bit. I want to make sure you have plenty of time.
Thank you for that. And I will mention on double nickels that one probably will be gone today.
Okay.
Like we'll probably replace it. So if you want to get the double nickels discount on something like the telephone consultation, which provided probably a very, very deep discount on that particular service, make sure that you do that today or latest, I would say midday tomorrow, I'm going to swap that out and that one will be expired. So if you need a telephone discount for your practice, now is the time to order that one. All right, Scott, you've got to stop sharing your screen so I can share my screen. I can only talk and fill time for so long.
Okay, stop
You
sharing.
look like I'm a senior. Okay. Nothing against seniors. I love seniors. Matter of fact, Scott, I don't know if you know this or not, but the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a real estate developer who developed a senior, but we didn't use the word senior because that was a bad word. We used active adult. That was the
Active adult. Yeah.
right. And it was great. And it was, we did a lot of pretty awesome things with that group. And it was fun to market to them in a way that was not offensive, kind of like what this picture is.
Yeah, that's great. I'm
For
sure
a lot of people
loves being mocked. Thank you.
Right. So I was actually going to look for a picture of you because I do have a couple of pictures of you where you're kind of looking like this friendly old lady here. But what I want to talk about is, and it's very in line with what Scott was talking about, and that is the maybe some common misconceptions that you may have as a business owner or a practice owner or a doctor or whatever about seniors, and then how you can take the truth of that thing and deploy that to your practice. As I mentioned, the first 10 years of my career, I was the marketing director for, at the time, the largest 55 and older community here in Utah. It was patterned after the Del Webb communities and some of those things, and we were wildly successful. It was a great opportunity to learn targeted marketing. And as a 22-year-old young whippersnapper, I had misconceptions about grandma and grandpa and what their buying patterns were, how to communicate to them, and all those things. And so it was a great experience for me to learn what that means and what it doesn't, and how that can impact. And so again, I threw this picture up there just because I think that is how a lot of people, particularly younger people, and again, if you're a new doctor, you may think senior citizen, and this is the first thing that comes to your mind. Frankly, you're wrong. I mean, that's the truth of it. You're wrong. And so I want to talk about those truths, true or false, and then how you can utilize that in your marketing. So the first thing is senior citizens are in the minority. And as Scott talked about, that is definitely false. There's 76 million baby boomers in the United States that are turning 65, which actually puts them in the majority. And as Scott mentioned, one of the reasons why that is because people are just simply living longer. And the baby boomer generation was a massive birth rate increase during that time. And so there's just a lot of people who have lived healthier lives, who have stayed active. Many are postponing retirement because they don't need to retire. A lot of them have transitioned to consulting gigs or have transitioned to working from home and these things. And so they don't necessarily, they don't work at the factory. They didn't clock in from 9 to 5 for 40 years. That's just not the type of job that a lot of these people, they may have started out in that type of a job, but the economy has changed so much in the last 20 years that that's probably not the career that they have today. And so it makes it so that they can actually go beyond the gold watch and they can continue to work. And so what that means for you as a practice owner is that seniors are truly desperate to hold on to youth as long as possible. And that is in every way. That is in their health. That is in the way that they, their fashion, their activities. And let me kind of share one quick story. When I first started working at this active adult community, that was about in early 2000 when I started working there. And we were primarily targeting the World War II generation at that time. And what was making them excited to want to buy into our community is because we had so many activities that were at the community. We had the big community center. We had the tennis club and the golf course around. We had all those things there at the community. Now, when we went from the World War II generation to the baby boomers and they started retiring, what we found is that they were much more apt to be drawn to out of the community activities. They wanted to be out on their mountain bike. They wanted to be out hiking. They wanted to be on their fishing boat. They wanted to be riding their Harley Davidson. They wanted to do all these things that were outside of the community. So we had to transition to promote that young lifestyle that they wanted, because they were not the same as the World War II generation. So for a practice owner, if you can, in your imagery and your messaging, promote youthfulness, promote vitality, you certainly never, if you're targeting a 65-year-old to 70-year-old, guess what? You put an image of a 55-year-old. People always see themselves as 10 or 15 years younger than what they actually are. So in your imagery, it's very, very important that you're promoting that youth and vitality. Okay, second true or false question. Senior citizens are technologically challenged and computer phobic. This, I think, is probably the biggest misconception, that when I'm working with a doctor in their practice and trying to help them establish some marketing methods, they think, well, I can't do anything on the computer. I can't do anything Google AdWords or Facebook or whatever. It just has to be direct mail or phone book or something like that. Well, as you can kind of guess, that is absolutely false. That is a huge misnomer when it comes to working with senior citizens. Most baby boomers were forced at some point in their career to go from the old way to the new way. So 15, 20 years ago, in their middle of their career, the industry that they're in, because almost every industry transitioned from working in filing cabinets and Rolodexes to working at a computer at their desk. And so, yes, the World War II generation was pretty technologically challenged and computer phobic. But the baby boomers as a whole, not all of them, but baby boomers as a whole, are quite savvy when it comes to technology because they had to use it. And they were usually at a high enough level in their career, so they were a boss or a manager or whatever, that they had to use it effectively. And so as technology changed and as they had to adapt to it, so too happened when the social media revolution happened. When that happened 10 or so years ago, they also had to take that on and have that grow. You might be surprised, but they are one of the biggest groups when it comes to utilizing social media and responding to the ads. Now, there is one change there, though. One thing about baby boomers is they still will prefer a brick and mortar shop over shopping online. That segment is growing, the online shopping with baby boomers, but they still want the tactile feel. They want to look and feel and touch. And so for a practice owner, this becomes very important that you allow them to research and shop on your website, but know that they're actually going to come into your practice. And it gives you a great advantage because they still want to have that personal connection to you when they're making their final purchase. Now, they also want the information up front. They are too smart. They're too savvy for the bait and switch. And so while if you might be having an offer that's going to bring in millennials or younger people, younger families, that same offer is probably not going to be successful with the senior citizen because they are, frankly, they've been down that road. And if they're in a higher income bracket, they have seen the bait and switch many, many times. And so they have to, and something that is so important is they have to trust you. You have to build that trust with them, and they frankly want their offers to be pretty direct. There has to be a really clear path that they need to follow on your website. In other words, if there's too many clicks to figure out what your offer is, I would say more than 2 on your website, they're probably going to be gone. Then they're going to go somewhere else. And so you've got to make sure that your information is demonstrated very clearly and concisely. Now, number 3, senior citizens have no brand loyalty. Now, this is absolutely false. They are actually far more loyal to brands than millennials. And so if you look at your market, you've naturally have gotten a report from Dr. Demographics, and you know how much of your market is segmented into which age brackets. If you have an age bracket that is largely senior citizen, and you're not targeting them because you think that millennials would be a better, more, because they have a longer life, so you're going to establish them, you might be missing the boat because senior citizens typically have a much higher brand loyalty than what millennials do. And so be thinking about that when you're establishing them, that yes, they may not have as long a life to be your patient, but they will likely come more often. They have higher need, and they'll probably spend more money. Now, something that's important is that fads and trends don't impact seniors. They tend to stay where they know and are comfortable. And so if you have the latest gadget and gizmo, latest technology, whatever, you have to do a pretty doggone good job of explaining exactly what the value is of that gizmo in order for them to see it as something other than a fad or a trend. They just aren't swayed in that way. They like meat and potatoes. They like what they're comfortable with. And so sometimes that technology spin of your practice is not the best when it comes to senior citizens. Okay, before we run out of time here, senior citizens won't buy anything unless there's a discount. This is actually something that I find almost every practice I work with believes, is they feel like they have to do some kind of coupon for senior citizens, and it has to have some kind of a discount to get them through the door. Now, it's false. However, there are some parts of the country where the senior market is, frankly, very, very budget-minded. They live in a fixed income. And that is a different strategy, in that possibly not a discount, but you do need to know very, very clearly how you're going to market to those people and sell them a package that they know exactly what the cost is from beginning to end, because they won't make a decision if they think that there's a hidden price. And so for the most part, it's not true. There are some great ways that you can build value and price with senior citizens, with baby boomers, but they have to see that connection. Again, you cannot hide the prices from them, because they will become wary very, very quickly on that. They'll shy away from an offer that you're putting out there, because they'll immediately ask, I wonder what the hidden cost is on this thing, or how much is it going to really cost me? But the other side of that is that they will pay a premium if there's a clear connection made. And so if you can, again, like we say, promote that youthfulness, that vitality, make them feel strong and good and doesn't hurt when they eat, that kind of a thing. If you can clearly show that, they will pay a premium for that. And like Scott mentioned, they usually have the money in the bank to pay for it. And so they're a great market to go after for that. Okay, our last one is they're too cheap to spend on expensive treatments. And so you might think they're just going to be meat and potatoes. They aren't going to go after those higher priced things. The truth is, seniors are some of the biggest spenders, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, by far in comparison to millennials. And that is both because they have the money to spend, and they're at a stage in their life where they're not spending on a lot of other things. They are spending on travel, they're spending on lifestyle, they're spending on these things. And at this stage of their life, the fact that they can eat a steak without feeling pain and enjoy it is a huge lifestyle plus. And so that's an important thing for you to showcase in your marketing. The other is that baby boomers are enter their senior years. They just frankly have more money to spend in the economy. And lastly, because they're generally more healthy, they want to spend their money in keeping their appearance young and vibrant. Scott, who mentioned that he's approaching 65, approaching that era, that particular group, more than any other group, sees themselves as 10 to 15 years younger. And so they want to go out and do those things. And so make sure that your imagery is creating that messaging and that market for the people that you're working with, again, for the senior citizens. So like we mentioned every single time, if this is a struggle for you, if you're having a hard time figuring that out, then you may want to look at a couple of options. You can look at a market segment report that we offer on Dr. Demographics, either in the way of a practice viability, if you're looking at an area, or a marketing report might be a good one for you to say, yes, 30% of your market are prime seniors. How do I market to them? You have those options. You can check out both the mastery course, or you can reach out to me at dentalpracticeinsiders.com/DMM, or you can email me at mike@drdemographics.com. Scott, I ended right on the button. How about that?
You did. Yeah, that was just amazing. And I've taught you well, Grasshopper.
Yes. Yes.
If you don't know the reference to Grasshopper, it was from an old TV show. So if you don't get it, shut up. Get off my lawn.
Was it from Kung Fu? Was that
yes, that was it.
Hey, I watched that when I was a kid.
Now, Mike, I want to just compliment you. That was a very good presentation on the senior market. I'm going to be honest with you, and having worked in marketing now for many decades, most people don't get how to promote the seniors.
Yeah.
Now, it's obviously an issue of race, ethnicity, income group, whatever, but seniors are not only ignored, but misunderstood. And I think what you just did was very, very good. So I want to congratulate you on that. Now, everybody listen, keep checking the landing page for discounts. Also, let other people know this whole thing that we're doing is free. And the reason we're doing it is because I want our customers to understand more than anybody else that what we're saying is based upon fact. Yes, we do know the areas. In fact, be honest with you, June is our month to travel. And so I'll be on the road. Mike will be on the road. Our job is to try to learn the locations. That's not a thing any of our competitors do. They're sticking to, well, computer images and stuff that they don't really well understand, but I'm not bitter. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure, and please visit us next week. We've got a kind of an exciting topic for next week as well. I won't announce, but please stick around.
Watch your emails.
That's right. And thanks so much for being with us. Bye-bye.